Good evening, everyone. I thought I'd dedicate this video to the terror attack that happened in Liverpool earlier this morning, about 10, maybe 9 o'clock. Might have been earlier, but this is based off of the time that I read it, around midday, and there was an article like 2 hours ago, but it could have been something like 8 or 9 or something for all I know. But anyway, there was an attack earlier today in Liverpool where a man who had an IED on him, and why is it every time I say that I feel like he needs an IUD up there? I mean, you've got to make light of the situation somehow, but he probably fucking had an IUD as well. Anyway, this guy had an IED on him, on his person, wherever, and he told the taxi driver that he was with, Mr. Perry, or David Perry, since they've leaked his full name, unlike the 4 people they've arrested, by the way. But I digress. He told David Perry to drive him to a memorial, I believe, or the cathedral that was dedicating a service for Remembrance Day. However, it turns out there was some roadworks that were taking place, and as such he wasn't able to get to said destination, which is fucking lucky as hell, and that's putting it nicely. It was very, very fortunate that there were roadworks taking place at the time. However, the real miracle in and of itself is going to come up in a short minute, because he then decided, this scumbag who had the IED, he then decided to tell the driver, alright, well, take me to the hospital instead, or one of the hospitals in Liverpool that was nearby. And the driver actually found out that this prick had an IED, and I wish he found out he had an IUD as well. Anyway, he I can't stop joking about that. Anyway, he found out that he had an IED, and he decided in that moment, because he knew full well what was going to happen after that, he put 1 and 1 together to make 2, or in my case 6. But anyway, he put 1 and 1 together and decided, you know what, no, you're not going to be bombing whatever you want. And so he locked him in the car with him. Now, words cannot describe the bravery of this man. I really should learn not to run up the stairs and nearly end up tripping over. Anyway, this guy, no words can describe the man's bravery in locking that guy in with him. He basically made sure that this terrorist, I can't say if he's Islamic or not, because I don't know if that's the case, though MI5 are not ruling it out. But David Perry was willing to give his life that day to ensure that this little see you next Tuesday did not kill a single soul. And that in and of itself is a miracle. The only person who died in that explosion, and bear in mind the radius as well, literally back seat to front seat, the only fucking person that ended up dying as a result of that explosion was the bomber himself. Yes, even David Perry, who was basically point blank to this bomb. You could not be any closer to that bomb, literally short of sticking your face next to it. And yes, I'll be filling that up later. Anyway, he was very, very lucky with the circumstances he had. I reckon the only reason he didn't die was because that IED didn't go off with as much force, or the fact that there was obviously his car seat blocking some of the explosion. I mean, it wouldn't completely stop the shrapnel and shit, but it would have prevented some of the effects from hitting him at the very least. And the only injury, well, he actually had 2 injuries. The only injuries this man had afterwards were shrapnel wounds, understandably to his face, and he lost an ear, which can easily be regrown. The fact that this man legit took a bomb to the face, metaphorically speaking, and then got out of that car and ran, understandably, into the hospital to get some treatment. The fact he even got out the fucking car, let alone ran to support, and my God, the staff was supportive of him, giving him a hug and everything. But I digress. The fact he got out the car, let alone actually got in and got some help, is probably the biggest miracle out of all of this, other than the fact that nobody died other than the bomber. And I reckon the people from this group who, in my humble opinion, I personally think it was an Islamic attack. But I can't 100% confirm it until, obviously, the news comes out. But I'm usually pretty certain on my hunches. I am fairly sure this will likely come out as an Islamic attack. But what's funny is, there was, from when I started making the video about 7-8 minutes ago, there was an article, I believe put out by ITV News. I'm going to link it in the description below, just in case. And I'm going to log in while I'm at it. Anyway, there is an article out there saying this man actually had a Middle Eastern background. And that apparently he wasn't known by MI5. I'll be skeptical about that bit, quite frankly, because there are so many cases in the past where there has been these Islamic terrorist attacks. But the way the mainstream media and the fucking police always like to label it is that in Lone Wolf cases, at least, he had mental health issues. Yeah. They were saying that he was mentally ill I say that in the perspective of most of the other cases regarding Islamic terrorists that are Lone Wolf. And what I have to make clear, we don't know if it was a Lone Wolf attack, but there are 4 people currently arrested, so it might have been a planned attack. And yet, Boris Johnson wants to sit here and say we will not be code as he raises the threat level. Well, to be fair, the British people I want to recite the thingy, but I don't know what it is at the moment. Here we go. We are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven. That which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. I think that is quite a symbolic poem, which was Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson. And it does pretty much describe us quite well. We have been made, we aren't the strength back in old days where we could actually say we could stand strong. We've been made weak by time and fate. Time being how long we've had these crooked politicians and the police in our country, the Labour Party, the Liberal Anti-Democrats, and the Conservative Party, as well as the incompetence of the police, as well as the cover-ups by the police. I think police trust is actually at an all-time low, much akin to the BBC and the 7,500 plus reviews that they've got on their Trustpilot. 93% 1 star, by the way. But enough about the BBC, it's not about them. It's about this attack and the police. The police have been known to cover things up, to lie about things. Oh, it was actually the Telegraph, not ITV. My mistake, I'll admit that. But hey, at least I can do it in the same video and not have to do another fucking one. Brilliant. But I'll link the Telegraph in the description below. You can see it for yourself. Hell, I can read some of this out if you like. If I can get my words right. Anyway, the Remembrance Sunday terrorist originated from the Middle East but was not known to the security services, the Telegraph can disclose. So I wonder what you can and can't disclose, Telegraph. Makes me curious now. Anyway, the bomber who died when his IED went off had ordered a taxi to take him to Liverpool Women's Hospital. But it wasn't his intended target, I think. I think it was more Liverpool's Anglican Cathedral, where he would have detonated it as the congregation would have left. So he was planning to take out way more at the cathedral. It was meant to be a holistic attack and a symbolic attack on Remembrance Day, is what this was meant to be. He was not on any MI5 watch list. I mean, I really want to believe them. But considering how much, as said, MI5 and the police have let us down from time to time, I am going to remain skeptical on that. But what does irritate me is the fact that, okay, maybe it's different circumstances, maybe I can compromise that much, but why is it the hero who deserves the credit? I'm not trying to take away from David Perry's accomplishments, far from it. He's a fucking hero, bluntly speaking. He's a hero and definitely deserves to be honoured. However, what I find disturbing more than anything is the fact that his name was leaked even instantly, whereas the 4 people who have been arrested, their names have not been given out. And as I said, in their defence, it may be that they're waiting to see if they can charge these people, and maybe then they'll release the names. I don't know. But we can't sit here and say that this wasn't planned. Far from it. The target may have been different because they couldn't get to their original target, but it doesn't change the fact that there could have been a plan B by these scumbags to go and bomb a hospital that is symbolic to it. But what is also funny as well is all these raids that take place, it makes me very, very suspicious that there could have been an element of maybe they knew and maybe didn't do anything about it until it was too late, and now some poor sod has ended up losing an ear. And I don't want any ear comments, because I will not have that joke. I don't think he would have it either. Anyway, I am very, very skeptical on a lot of this shit. But as I said, I will link the article in the description below for you to see. That is mainly what I wanted to cover. This attack is completely disgusting. Though in some weird sense as well, it's also not as disgusting as some of the other attacks, since it's only really done harm to one person, and the only other person who's actually died is the bomber himself. So in a weird sense, it's kind of not as bad an attack, but the attack and the motives and what these bastards were trying to do is completely condemnable, 100%. What they did was completely abhorrent. No question about that. Unequivocally abhorrent attack. It just feels a little weird having to say it in the context of there was no real loss of life, per se. I know it's going to sound a little weird when you put it into that perspective, but at the very least, nobody has died other than that prick himself. It's a real shame, though, that I can't trust the police. I think a lot of people can't trust the police, to be brutally honest. Our efforts can only succeed with the support of the public, says senior counter-terrorist officer. Well, you know what? If the police had more trust in you, maybe you'd have more people willing to support you. I mean, okay, nobody wants terrorism in the country, but generally speaking, a lot of these people aren't as stupid as the mainstream media like to think we are. A lot of us are very, very skeptical now, especially considering the cover-ups, the grooming gang cover-ups, such as in Rochdale, Telford, Rotherham, Liverpool, Manchester. So understandably, Liverpool police are going to be under scrutiny, And we should hold their feet to the fire because they have covered up grooming gang crimes. And I say, quite frankly, that you deserve to have your feet put to the fire, Liverpool police, because the British public cannot trust the police very easily because of their crimes before. And the fact, of course, when it comes down to protests from either the left or the right wing, it's a two-tier policing system entirely. How you will draw batons on, you actually bring in full riot gear police and draw batons at the first sign of overexcitedness with anybody who's affiliated or described by the mainstream media as far right. And yet when you've got groups like Insular Britain or Antifa, kid gloves approach. You'll hardly ever see any riot police up there with their batons drawn. The only time they actually started doing something about the bastards was BLM, and when BLM actually attacked the police, because obviously they've got to defend themselves. But any other time, they will draw it on the innocent public, sometimes unprovoked, and attack them. And I think they need to be held to account for this, unfortunately. They need to be held in this level of scrutiny because of how they operate in this country. And like I've said before, a question you should all ask the police, whether you're in Liverpool, whether you're in Scotland, whether you're in Norwich, whether you're in Cardiff, wherever, you need to all ask your police forces, your local police force, or is it wocal police force, depending. You need to ask them one simple question. And I guarantee you a lot of the wokals won't like this. But ask them, who do you serve? The British people or the British government? Ask yourselves that, British police, as a whole. And Liverpool police, I expect to see those names. If the 4 men are charged with planning a terrorist attack, I expect you to publish the names of these people so that the British people knows the truth, because the truth will set us free. And I think it'll at least restore some semblance of trust in you, because at least then I'll be like, oh, well, they revealed the information of these people and now we know it was blah, blah, blah. But if you try to cover it up just because they're from a certain race or a certain religion, you will only further erode the trust the British people have in you. And the way I look at it right now, if the British police doesn't start restoring the trust in the British people, if the British police does not start doing their jobs regarding pretty much everything, how they police protests, how they deal with these terrorist attacks, how they deal with Insular Britain wankers. Like I said in that video, start doing your job or we'll do it for you. Because if you don't start doing your job, we really will come in and take the law into our own hands. My name's Dabima, also known as Abatha Eggs, and I am, as always, very, very bad news for the scumbags who did this attack, and of course our crooked police force, who I'm hoping will be able to restore some semblance of dignity and trust in us by telling us, if these 4 men are charged, who they are, what their backgrounds are, because we deserve to know. We deserve to know the truth. And you, the British police, need to do your job, because I really do not want this to come down to people taking the law into our own hands because we can't trust the police to do their job. I don't want that. But I'm not afraid to say it. I say things how they are. I don't mince my words. I don't fucking sugarcoat shit. And I don't suppose it would make it smell any better. Anyway, I don't sugarcoat shit because I know full well You don't get anything done by pussyfooting around things, bluntly speaking. You tell the truth, you say it how it is, and then show people you're actually going to give a shit about the British people rather than serve your own government. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to try and restore trust in the people? Or will you continue to turn the knife in the backs of the British people? Will you continue to cover up? If these guys are from the religion of peace, will you continue to cover them up? That's a question we all need to ask. I don't want to see it go down the violent route. But the British police, the government, the media, they're all pushing it. They are pushing their luck, and they're trying to see how far they can go before the British people finally snap. And that was my finger I just heard, my infected finger. Anyway, it won't be long before they snap. And when they do, you'll have a whole load of shit to clean up. I only hope you're ready for it if it does get to that. And I don't want it. And I'll never advocate for violence. I'd never advocate for a violent revolution. But I will always understand why people would go down to that path. Thank you for watching. And have a pleasant evening.